Hello, welcome to the Go Grab That Day podcast. Today we're going to talk about UFC Fight Night, Paul Felder versus Rafael dos Anjos. Just looking at the prelims here, the card wasn't all that bad. A little bit of, names were pretty small on the cards, but the actual fights were pretty good in the end if anyone has seen it. If not, you should have. But just running through the prelims here. I start off first by saying, like I said, I hope everyone's okay. Keep liking and sharing and all that with the podcast. This will be the last one we're shooting in our current studio, aka bedroom, aka living space. Today, so far, fingers crossed, there's no background noise, no guys playing pool, no washing machines, dryers, riots, anything like that happening in the background, so hopefully it stays that way. But as I said last week, we are moving to a wider space. We'll be able to put more content. The quality will be better, there'll be no stupid noise in the background, so look forward to that. But this will be, as I said, the last one in this space, and then from there on we'll be able to have a lot more videos and things like that. So keep an eye out and stick with me. Stick with me. We'll get better as we go. Anyway, on to the fight cards. On to the violence. So running down through the card, as I said, it wasn't the biggest card. The main event is very good, obviously, but it's just another fight night. So some of the names, unless you follow it heavily, you won't know. Some of them I do, but they're not huge names. But anyway, we'll run through the prelims there. So to kick off the prelims, it was a heavyweight bout between Dontel Mize versus Rocco Martinez. It's an alright fight. It's a heavyweight fight, so as I said 100 times before, it's always a bit of excitement with the heavyweight fights, but this was alright. It wasn't great. Dontel Mize was the much bigger guy, much stronger looking guy. They had talked previously that he had a very conditioning heavy camp, strength and conditioning heavy, and you can see it looked that way. But to be honest, like Rocco Martinez, who was much shorter guy, he looked a lot heavier, he looked a little more out of shape, but he put Dontel Mize to the test. It was kind of a back and forth fight. Mize won in the end via decision, but yeah, not the most exciting fight. It was okay for a heavyweight fight, but yeah, Dontel Mize got the win in the end. He did say himself he wasn't too happy with the performance afterwards, but in fairness, a lot of them say that. But so moving on to the next fight, which is a very good fight. It was Alex Morono versus Rhys McKee. For anyone that doesn't know, Rhys McKee made his debut probably a couple of months back against Khamzat Chimaev. So what a person to make your debut against, considering Chimaev is one of the hottest prospects now at the moment. Well, Rhys McKee comes out of Northern Ireland. I can't remember where in Northern Ireland, but kind of an exciting enough fighter. A little bit inexperienced and stuff like that, but he's certainly not getting the look of the draw for a guy who's only on his second fight in the UFC to get Alex Morono, who's pretty experienced. But I was hoping Rhys McKee would do it. I didn't know a lot about him before he came to the UFC, but if you watch, there's a video on YouTube of when it was announced that he was going to make his short notice debut in the UFC. His manager kind of video called him. You get it on YouTube, but his manager basically video called him, and they were preparing for I think it was either a title fight or a title defense. He was defending a title in BAMA, which is a European organisation. But anyway, the manager was basically asking him, "Are you ready for your fight at the weekend?" and all this, and on that phone call he announced that they were heading to Fight Island to make his debut in the UFC, and of course against Khamzat Chimaev. Didn't go too well for him, but in fairness, short notice fight against a guy who's shit hot at the moment like Chimaev is. But typical UFC fashion, then they give him another experienced guy afterwards, Alex Morono. Welterweight division, Morono isn't like, he's not going to blow your ear back with his performances, but he is very experienced. He's 5 or 6 years in the UFC now. So kind of felt a bit bad for Rhys McKee, but I just hope the UFC do stick with him, because I think if he gets more experience and he just learns as he goes, he will be a big prospect for the UFC. This fight was good. It was pretty back and forth. McKee took some heavy shots, but kept coming forward, kept walking down Alex Morono. A couple of right hands he took that McKee took would have knocked plenty of other people out, and he just kept taking them, kept walking forward. I think the difference in the end was probably the damage that Morono had done, just landing heavier shots, and a little bit of the grappling. But in fairness to McKee, he was still getting up every time. He didn't take him down a whole lot, but he took him down 3 or 4 times throughout the fight. But it was good timing. Like, it took him down at the very end of the fight, and he held him down. I think he took him down at the end of the second round too. But yeah, McKee did look good, and I do hope the UFC stick with him. Just give him someone, a little less. That's the difference with MMA, and in particular the UFC and boxing. You don't get these walkover fights. You come into the UFC, you're going to have to fight somebody good. And it's funny, because no matter where they come from, whether it's Bellator, Bama, Cage Warriors, whatever, anywhere, one championship, the step up to the UFC is visible all the time. There always seems to be such a big step up, even when they're fighting guys who are not supposed to be that good. But like Morono, it is around a long time. If my memory serves me correct, he spent some time on The Ultimate Fighter 2. The Ultimate Fighter also, not 2, the number again. But yeah, pretty sure he did. I can't remember what season, but he did spend some time on it, as far as I know. So that's more experience again. But the fight, as I said, was good. I thought they were going to get fight of the night, to be honest, but they didn't. We'll talk about who got that later. Well, it was the main event. Most people know already that, but deservedly so. But I thought maybe the two lads would have been nice in and getting a word too. But no, yeah, good fight. There was an incident in the fight. Kind of, I don't know if you want to call it funny. It was a bit weird that McKee had his mouth guard knocked out, and the referee spotted it had fallen in the gap of the cage and the canvas. Fell right down through under the ring, under the cage. And that put a delay in the fight. It's just funny to see the guy scrambling around trying to find his mouth guard. But good job by the referee. Had to be done, but that's definitely a first. It gave the two guys a break. The pace of the fight was unreal. And of course that didn't stop then after they got their break. But yeah, McKee kind of has this sort of Rory MacDonald look about him. For those of you that remember, Rory MacDonald was in the UFC for quite a few years, put on some great fights. He's not up to Rory MacDonald's level, not nearly, but he has that way about him, kind of looks like him, kind of fights like him a little bit. But it's just during the fight, Trevor Whitman came in on the commentary, and he said that I had noticed this myself, but of course Trevor Whitman, being who he is, can say it a lot better, explain it a lot better than someone like me. But McKee would always follow his hips. That's the way he put it. So every time he'd throw a shot, he would follow it in, kind of with his chin in the air, which didn't help him. And Bisping had alluded to that a couple of times, that he does leave himself exposed. So maybe he can learn from that and get a bit better. But one thing I noticed as well throughout the fight, which I thought was really good, was every time he would get in like a grappling exchange, or if Morono would get too close, he would use trips. And they were working every time, not even to get Morono down, but just to put him off balance so McKee could step out. And he did it like 3 or 4 times, and each time he did it, it would put Morono off balance. They're kind of like your kind of like a Muay Thai sweep, or if you want to call it judo trips, but they were never to really get him down. It was just to put him off balance and get out of there, and it worked every time. It was quite cool to see. So he definitely has some things worth looking at. And again, I'm speaking as a fan of Rhys McKee, but Morono got the win in the end via decision. Good win. But I would like to see the UFC stick with Rhys McKee and just give him a chance against someone, a little bit newer, kind of coming up early in their career in the UFC as well. Like Morono's been there for quite a few years. Khamzat Chimaev is new enough to the UFC, but he was touted to be a big name even before he got there. So yeah, just give the guy a chance to prove himself, because he has the ingredients there to be a good fighter. I don't know his coach. I can't even think of the coach's name, but Mike Bisping seems to know him. He spoke a bit about him. He said on the European scene he is quite a good coach. So yeah, hopefully he does. Hopefully he does get that chance. It was funny. Throughout the fight, Morono was landing a lot more shots. Not even more. He was just landing heavier shots. But it was funny towards the end. I think it was the end of the second round. Yeah, it was at the end of the second round. Morono's coach, just Saif Sayoud, I believe, they were saying to him, "Listen, this guy's not going anywhere. You just have to keep landing shots." But they're basically acknowledging the fact that they weren't going to finish Rhys McKee, which it did look that way because he was pretty bust up, but he just kept coming forward and he was starting to land some nice body shots on Morono. But definitely, if he tightened up his game a little bit, he looks like a guy who could be a good fighter. And I do wonder if maybe, because he's a very tall guy, but I wonder if he can make, because I think he fought at lightweight in Bama, so it's possible he could drop down to lightweight as well. Now, it's a very, very stacked division down there, so you'd wonder if maybe he's alright where he is at welterweight. But anyway, moving on. For me, that was one of the best fights on the card, in my opinion. Well, great win for Alex Morono, and I just hope the UFC do stick with Rhys McKee. And the next fight at the bantamweight division, good fight too actually, was Geraldo de Freitas Jr. Or de Freitas Jr. against Tony Gravely. This was a good fight. It was kind of an even fight. The main difference being Tony Gravely's wrestling. He was constantly taking him down, not controlling him throughout the whole fight, but Freitas Jr. kept kind of he was very aggressive in his guard, very aggressive off his back. If he wasn't trying to land shots, he was trying to get a submission, which is always good to see, but a lot of the time the judges don't score that. It's more the guy who's on top and in control. Rightly so, because Gravely was pretty much in control, but that was a good fight too. Freitas Jr. had Gravely in trouble towards the end of the fight. He was landing heavy shots and had him in trouble. Came close to a finish, but smartly, like wrestlers do, Gravely took him down and controlled him until the end of the round and the end of the fight. So, good win. The bantamweight division. But, moving on, just trying to cut through this as quick as I can. Yeah, the main, if you want to call it the main event of the prelims, or the main fight in the prelims, was Randa Marcos versus Kanako Murata. Murata won this via decision as well. Marcos is another lady who's been doing it for a long, long time. I think she broke a record, or she equalled a record for the most strawweight fights in the UFC, I think. Angela Hill, I think, is the only lady to either have more or have the same as Randa Marcos. But Murata won this fight, kind of controlled it through grappling, really. Kind of controlled it everywhere, in my opinion. She just looked better. And her build, she was much bigger. She had huge shoulders. She just looked much stronger than what Marcos was. She looked like she was in a different division. But not the most exciting fight. But a good win for Murata. Makes you wonder, what is Randa Marcos another one of these people that maybe should think about calling her quits? But I don't know. I am not going to get another rant about that. But that's the prelims anyway. So now we'll jump on to the main card. The first fight on the main card was Kay Hansen versus Corey McKenna. This was a good fight too, and I think both of these girls were 21 years old. And I think it either broke a record too for like the youngest fight ever, or it was close enough. There was, obviously they're not the youngest people to fight in the UFC, but it's on both sides, both of them being 21. I think it was the youngest fight. If they didn't break the record, they're up there somewhere anyway. But this it was a good fight, pretty back and forth. Again, another fight where the grappling is what kind of won it in the end with Corey McKenna. She won via decision, but both of them definitely worth keeping an eye on for the future because it's quite an exciting fight. Hanson's striking I quite liked. She had good kicks, a bit of everything really, and McKenna's boxing was quite good, but she seemed to be a little better in the grappling. She also comes from Uriah Faber's camp, so they'd be pretty good at grappling, and they'll all have, she's a strawweight, so she will have plenty of guys and girls in that camp that she can roll with and wrestle with, and I think she came out in an interview saying that she trains in the land of the little people, which was quite funny. But still a good camp. Faber always has a good crop of fighters there that people can train with and learn off and stuff like that. So definitely worth keeping an eye on the two of them. That was a good fight. Moving on. Like always, I'm kind of skipping through these fight nights pretty quick because they're not the most. I don't want to spend too long on these smaller names right now because it's going to bore people if they don't know them. But the next one was a catchweight fight. Brendan Allen versus Sean Strickland. Both guys very entertaining fighters. Sean Strickland has been in plenty of entertaining fights, and lately he's kind of doing a lot of talking in and out of the cage as well. But Strickland with a KO or TKO in round 2, minute 32 into round 2. But it was a good fight, back and forth fight as well. I think Strickland's jab was doing a lot of damage throughout the fight. And then when he eventually finished him, he finished him pretty vicious. It looked to me like Brendan Allen was out on his feet. Kind of a couple of shots before the referee actually stopped it, but these things happen. But it was a good fight. Good finish for Sean Strickland. Brendan Allen is not an easy fight for anybody, and neither is Sean Strickland, but both pretty experienced guys, and it was a good win. It was an exciting enough fight. So throughout the card there was 3 or 4 good fights worth watching. That was one of them as well. But credit to Sean Strickland for that. And moving on to women's strawweight. This was a pretty boring fight too. Ashley Yoder, Spider Monkey versus Miranda Ranger. Ashley Yoder a lot more experienced than what Ranger is in the UFC, and it showed. Mostly on her grappling and her wrestling, she pretty much controlled the fight. Landed some good shots too standing up, but usually Yoder, her main focus is her wrestling. She's pretty good at it, and that's kind of showed in the fight. That's what she did. She just pretty much controlled the grappling side of it and nullified everything that Ranger had. But good fight, good win, decision. A lot of decisions there too. Moving on to the co-main, and there was a lot of talk about this fight being super exciting. It was both guys have major knockout power. I'm just looking at the UFC thing here. Why have the Chaos Williams? Don't have his right name here, but anyway. So this was a knockout, 30 seconds. Chaos Williams versus Al Hassan. Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Again, both guys were touted for having some serious knockout power. But my God, Williams, bang on 30 seconds in, absolutely smashed Al Hassan with a right hand. And from the second he touched him, the second he landed that shot, Al Hassan's entire body stiffened. And he was out from the minute he landed, or the second he landed, sorry. And he was out cold, his whole body stiffened up, and he just dropped like a tree. It's always the worst knockouts because you gotta watch them drop and their head hitting the canvas. But his whole body stiffened up, he was just out cold. One thing that drives me crazy is the Chaos Williams, which is a really cool name. For some reason he also has a nickname. I don't know why. Why not just leave yourself as Chaos Williams? I can't remember what his nickname is. I don't know. I don't care either. But why he has a nickname when I know Chaos is a nickname he's had since he was a kid. I think I don't know what his real name is, but he comes in and he gets announced as Chaos Williams, and then there's a nickname with it. It makes no sense. Why not just stick with Chaos Williams? Chaos is a cool name. Anyway, a little bit of a rant there. But no, that was a good knockout for him. Putting the welterweight division on notice. It packs some serious power. And if you look, like when you see that finish live, when I was watching it live, it was kind of hard to see what he hit him with. And it wasn't, not that it wasn't the cleanest, but it's both guys were striking at the same time, so it kind of snuck in under Al Hassan's arms. But when he hit him, the lights went out straight away. So he packed some serious power for that division. Big dude as well, so very interesting. There's a lot of guys that won't fancy fighting him. And why would you want to fight a guy with the name Chaos anyway? But yeah, credit him, good knockout. Al Hassan is going to be about a week trying to wake up from that. Very good knockout. He got a performance of the night bonus, as did Sean Strickland. But deservedly so. I still kind of wish the Rhys McKee and Alex Morona fight got some sort of award, but I'm not Dana White, so I don't make these decisions. Anyway, moving on to the main event, and this was exactly what it was advertised was going to be a great fight, a back and forth great fight from two great fighters, Paul Felder and RDA Rafael dos Anjos. But yeah, I did think, I'm just rooting for Paul Felder. It's hard not to, because he's another one of those guys. Like, he's such a good character for the UFC. Obviously he's commentating and stuff like that now, which I think he's very good at too. I love to hear when he's commentating. He bounces well off the other guys. Every time he fights, his fights are super exciting. I had the pleasure of watching him fight Dan Hooker here in Auckland, which is a great fight as well, back and forth. Was a little unlucky not to win it, I think, as much as I was rooting for Dan Hooker as well. But yeah, very good fight, and typical Paul Felder, all his fights are just really good. For anyone that doesn't notice, I think, or doesn't know, I think I said this last week, he took this on 4 or 5 days notice, which is pretty crazy. I think the only thing that helped him is he was training for a triathlon. So his cardio would have been pretty good, but it's a totally different story being fight ready and being triathlon ready, I'd imagine. But he was fit enough anyway, and he was not really training, but he was hitting some pads, he said. So he was saying in an interview that he got the call while on the treadmill, and he was well overweight as well, apparently. Like the lightweight division, the limit is 156. I believe Felder was 178 or nearly 180 when he got the call. So I'd imagine that weight cut was not a lot of fun. But it was hard not to want to see him win when he was, he spent the whole week talking about he lost his father in 2017 through pancreatic cancer, I believe, and it's now Pancreatic Cancer Month, which is why he's doing the Movember thing, wearing the moustache, or growing the moustache. But yeah, it's just some of his interviews were emotional and stuff like that, so it's hard not to want to see him win. But again, also, if you're a fight fan, RDA is a great guy too, very entertaining fighter, very good guy to listen to. Yeah, the difference in this fight, it was very back and forth. Like Felder, for a guy who supposedly wasn't fully fight fit, his cardio held up brilliantly. The wrestling of Dos Anjos did make the difference. That made the difference. It seems to be the difference in a lot of these fights, but it was just the grappling and the wrestling. That's what won him the fight. Striking wise, it was pretty even. He was landing a lot of shots, but Felder was landing quite a few too. And a typical Paul Felder fights, he was throwing back spinning elbows, everything and anything, but it was a good fight. That got fight of the night, which I agree with, but like I said earlier, it would have been nice to see the McKee fight get that too. But no, well deserved, and it's good to see both guys get a bonus. Two guys are around a long time, but on some great performances. Felder said in his interview afterwards that he's not going anywhere, he's sticking around for another while, and I think that's good. As much as I've ranted lately about fighters sticking around too long, I don't think I think he has a lot left in him still. Not going to go on a title run, but I don't think Dos Anjos is going to go on a title run either. Both guys still have it in them though to put on good performances and put on good fights. No, I would like to see Felder stick around for another bit. I know he's got a good job with the commentating and things like that, but I wouldn't. If he retired, I wouldn't hate it. But if he stayed around, I wouldn't hate it either. I mean, he still doesn't look to me like he's slowed down in any way or anything like that. And it's not like he's been in some wars, which obviously takes the toll on the body, but he hasn't taken some real heavy knockouts or been flatlined in any fights or anything like that. So yeah, some people feel he should hang it up. I think he could do it for another year or two. Get another couple of fights in, but he does have the commentary gig, so he could hang it up. On the other side is with RDA, back down to lightweight where he wants to have the belt, and he was, once the man at the top of the mountain. He's talking about going for another run at the title, that he wants the title back. I don't see it. I think that division is stacked full of guys who can beat him. Now, RDA in his day, super well rounded, very good fighter, could very well put a test up for a lot of these guys, but I just think the division is too talent heavy for him right now. Yeah, just I've gone through the lightweight rankings a couple of times in previous podcasts. I forgot what I was doing there for a second. Yeah, I just think a lot of the guys beat him. If you look at who was beating him in welterweight, some good fighters, but I still think, I just think the welterweight, top 5 and even some outside of that, they just have too much for him. He is kind of vouching for the McGregor fight, which they tried to do before. It never happened, but I think McGregor will look beyond him, but it also might be a guy that McGregor might want to fight because he's not the top of the pile, and it might be a good way to rank up some this season. He keeps talking about where he wants to get 3 or 4 fights in a year, so he could, he's got the small matter of the Diamond Poirier coming up next before he looks at Dos Anjos. But yeah, again, Dos Anjos looked great, he did, but I mean, both he and Paul Felder, they're not the tip of the spear in any of those divisions. Good fighters, but they're kind of both, I had said previously, they're kind of the gatekeepers, where these are the guys, you put your prospects up against, your rising prospects up against to see if they're good enough for the top. And it's when they beat these guys, then you kind of go, okay, we give them a chance against, maybe a top 5 or whatever. Not to insult the two guys, I think they're really good, but that's just kind of that, in particular, Dos Anjos, the last few years, that's kind of the role he is. I don't want to say taken on, because he wouldn't have done it on purpose, but it's kind of he's portrayed, I suppose, or he's seen as the gatekeeper. It has been with the welterweight division and the lightweight division for a couple of years. But who knows? My predictions haven't been the best lately, so he'd probably be a double champ next year. But no, he did look good, and he is, on his day, he's a great fighter. He has everything. He's got wrestling, striking, submissions. So yeah, he could go on and do it. I don't see it, but no, good fight, very enjoyable fight. Kind of one of those ones you don't know who you want to win. For me, I wanted Felder to win it, but both guys, I love the fact that RDA comes out to the Bloodsport team, which is brilliant. Anyone that knows the reference to the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Bloodsport, which is still a good movie to watch even nowadays. But yeah, it's brilliant that he comes out to that team. Anyway, moving on. We're going to talk about the card next week. So yeah, I have to say, that wasn't a bad card. There was some interesting fights on it, but mainly the main event was probably the best of the bunch. Science Point, they got the award. Next week we have, it's an actual UFC 255. So yeah, it is a pretty good card. There's some fights that will go kind of, I want to say, unnoticed on it, but they will. The main event being Davison Figueiredo versus Alex Perez. I'll go through all the fights here. What are the early prelims? Yeah, it is. There's some big enough names. Even on the early prelims, you've got Alan Jouban fighting Jared Gooden. Is it Jared Gordon? Fucking hell, this UFC app or the page, they're fucking up a lot of the fighters' names. I'm guessing that's supposed to be Jared Gordon he's fighting, but they have it down as Jared Gooden. And of course they don't even have his picture up. So yeah, good work UFC. Fucking can't put up a good website, but they can sell the company for $4 billion. And if Kyle Dacos is fighting as well on this is the early prelims I saw. There's some good names. It's only 3 fights, but it's Adam Joban getting pushed way back. Fucking hell. Then moving on to the prelims. Like again, it's actually an even better card than I'd even anticipated myself. So to open up the prelims, you got Daniel Rodriguez versus Nicholas Dalby. Then you got women's flyweight Antonina Shevchenko, which is Valentina's sister, against Ariana Lipski. And the middleweight fight, you got Joaquin Buckley versus Jordan Wright. And Buckley is the guy who had that crazy knockout a couple of weeks ago, the back spinning kick, which went pretty viral. If you hadn't seen it, or you haven't seen it, then where the fuck have you been? I'm not even going to explain it to you. You should have seen it. It's been pretty much everywhere. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, he got the knockout, one of the craziest knockouts probably ever in the UFC. Back spinning kick. But anyway, my pick for one of the best fights on this entire card, and this fight is on the prelims. It's kind of the main fight in the prelims. You got Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval in the flyweight division. That's going to be a really good fight. Both of these guys are, I don't want to say picked them, but I kind of said they're guys to keep an eye on for challenging for the flyweight title. They're both very exciting fighters. Both had really good fights with Royval's last fight was against Kai Kara-France, where they both dropped each other in the first round, and Royval went on to eventually win it. Moreno also had a great fight with Kai Kara-France a year before, I believe. But 2 good fighters, and that would be an exciting fight. I think they're going to be very evenly matched. So that's a pick for, that's one to watch, definitely. And then on to the main card. I might start another rant after talking about this fight. So you got light heavyweight Paul Craig versus Mauricio Shogun Rua. Again, Shogun Rua, 74 years of age, and he's still fighting. It's fucking I don't know why. I don't know, but I know people are going to argue against it. Rua's on a bit of a streak at the moment, but he's past it. He's done. What can he do? He's fought in Pride. He's fought legends. He was champion. What more can he do? Just fucking retire, please. Give up. Go coaching. Paul Craig is kind of not the worst fight for Rua, but he's heavy-handed, and he has knocked some guys out. So yeah. I'm not going to go on a rant, but anyway, there's a big name. Paul Craig is always in interesting fights too, to be fair, so that's not a bad fight to watch. And that's open in the main event. And then you've got Caitlin Chukagian versus Cynthia Calvillo. Again, another good fight, exciting fight. Calvillo is always pretty exciting, and Chukagian both pretty big names. And then it's going to be a great fight. Tim the Dirty Bird Means against Mike Perry. Mike Perry, who has decided to have his pregnant girlfriend and one of his best friends who has never fought in his life in his corner. So why he's doing this, I don't know. And for anyone that doesn't know, Mike Perry wanted to pretty much raffle off a winning ticket for a fan to come and be in his corner for this fight, which Dana White wouldn't allow for a number of reasons, obviously, with COVID and all that, and obviously they're not going to do that. But Perry, ever the crazy kind of exciting dude that he is. Well, that'll be a really good fight. Tim Means' last couple of fights he's around a long time, but his last couple of fights have been pretty exciting. This one, that's a good fight too. And then moving up to women's flyweight, you got Valentina Shevchenko, the older of the Shevchenko sisters and the more serial killerish, versus Jennifer Maia. this fight is probably going to end by murder or decapitation, or I don't know. Just they need to have a grave ready at the side of the cage anyway. No, I'm just joking, but I got to be careful with these predictions because they've been horrendous lately. But Shevchenko, she wins. I would put a lot of money on that she wins. I'm not going to call via what, because she can win by anything. Jennifer Maia, good fighter, no doubt about it. She can go and fight anyone else in the division. Just don't fight Shevchenko. Jesus, don't. If you want to beat a Shevchenko, try and fight her younger sister. She's too good. I've said it 100 times, too good for that division. I really hope that next week I'm not going to be my foot in my mouth, but I don't see Jennifer Maia winning that fight. I think Shevchenko is just the only person that beats her is another animal, being Amanda Nunes. But I've done enough talking about those two as well. I always like watching Shevchenko's fights, even though they're always one-sided. But like her striking, her all-round game is brilliant to watch. But her striking is just phenomenal. The way she puts everything together, and then when she decides to mix it up as well, she's a class act. Really doesn't get recognised enough, in my opinion. Both her, Amanda Nunes lately gets a little better recognised. I still don't think it's enough. But herself and Shevchenko, they're goats. They're 100% there. And people can argue that the divisions don't offer enough, but that doesn't matter. They're still beating who's put in front of them and beating them well. It's not like they're just scraping through these fights. They look like they're in, second gear, and they've another 3 gears to go, when they're winning these fights. But yeah, that's enough of a foot in the mouth statement if that fight goes wrong. So I'll shut up. But no, that's a good fight, and that's actually, again, I was guilty of kind of sleeping on this card. I didn't realise they had packed it so much. I knew these fights were coming up, but I thought they were spread out over the next few cards. But no, this is actually a really good card. So I might actually legally pay for it. And going to the main event, you've got Davison Figueiredo versus Alex Perez for the flyweight title. Good fight. Yeah, that's a good fight. I had said previously, Alex Perez is a good test for Figueiredo. I think Figueiredo's too heavy-handed. I see him winning that fight. But for me, the exciting thing about this is on this card, I like when the UFC do this, because you've got obviously the main event being a flyweight fight, and then you've got the next contenders fighting, which is Moreno and Rival, which makes it exciting because then you can kind of line up what's happening next. Hopefully, I know there's still that Cody Garbrandt stepping down, that kind of talk, but forget about that for now. But I like when the UFC do this, because you kind of get to line things up in your own head, all based off the one fight card. But I do, definitely check out that fight card. It's a really good fight card from top to bottom, all the way from the early prelims down. But yeah, my pick for there's 2 fights to really keep an eye out on is the Mike Perry versus Tim Means fight. Mike Perry versus Tim Means, and then you got Brandon Rival versus Brandon Moreno. Both very, very good fights. I think for technique and pure skill, Rival and Moreno would be a great fight for, at the back of a nightclub in the middle of whatever shitty city you want to name. Mike Perry versus Tim Means. Not to say they're not talented fighters, but it's just the kind of fights they tend to put on. And it'll be quiet. I'm sure a lot of the talk next week is going to be the advice that Mike Perry is getting from his corner, which is quite hilarious. Why he's doing this, I don't know, but I guess that's just Mike Perry for you. But exciting stuff. It was funny actually, just going back on that. I believe Darren Till. Anyone who hasn't checked out like Darren Till on Instagram, or mostly his Instagram, he is absolutely hilarious. He's forever kind of making fun. He's had a lot of kind of, if you want to call it, beef and banter over and back with Mike Perry, making fun of him, and he keeps kind of cropping his pictures, putting his face in with Mike Perry's girlfriend or wife, and doing loads of things like that. Darren Till is, if you haven't seen his Instagram, you've got to check it out. But he had actually wanted to be in Mike Perry's corner, because And Darren Till is just as crazy as Mike Perry, and he had offered to be in his corner after all the shit talk and stuff like that. So that would have been hilarious to see. But obviously Mike Perry's not going to take him up on that. But then again, you wouldn't fucking know. You wouldn't know it either of them guys. But yeah, I think a lot of the talk next week will be of Mike Perry's corner and the kind of advice he gets. If he wins, he'll do all the talking about it, saying he doesn't need anyone in his corner, and if he loses, you're probably going to have me talking shit about him. But not a smart move regardless of how the fight goes. But look, that's Mike Perry for you. That's why he's kind of an exciting fighter and people like him, because of the crazy shit he does. But yeah, again, that is a really good card. I actually look forward to watching all of this. Look forward to breaking it down next week. Yeah, that's pretty much everything covered this week. No other major news in the MMA world at the moment that I can think of. Yeah, so that's just, I'll break down that card next week. As I said, this will be, keep calling our studio, our final week in this space. So next week we will have, obviously because we're no longer being a shared house, it will be a lot easier to put up more podcasts, what's the word I'm looking for? More stuff. Content. Thank you. Content. I'll have plenty more content coming up. Again, I've said it 100 times, but a lot more stuff that won't be just MMA based. It's just taking time to get there, but when we do, there will be a lot more shit up. I'll still be sticking with the MMA podcasts and all that, but there will be a lot more. And like I said previously, I am trying to set up hopefully a couple of interviews or some people to join me on the podcast. It'll mostly be via Skype or whatever other fucking things, right? I don't actually have to have them in my studio, but just mostly through Skype. It'll be recorded, same thing, it'll be a video podcast. But there's some interesting names I'm trying to get, Tom Cruise, President Obama, these kind of people. But no, it's definitely some people will be quite interesting to talk to, and we'll be able to have some good questions for them. And I'm not going to give names now, but there is some people I'm looking at talking to, which will be interesting. And yeah, that'll hopefully all start to kick off next week. So yeah, please keep sharing, liking, all that kind of stuff. I know I say that at the end of every podcast, but do please keep sharing and get as many people to subscribe and like to it. It just makes it worthwhile for me doing it. Look, I'm going to do this anyway, because even without the camera on, every Sunday I'll spend an hour and a half talking shit about fights. It's just what I like to do, but make it worthwhile if I get a little bit of feedback from people and suggestions, whatever. I have a couple of people there that do. Fairness, every week they're giving me some suggestions and things like that, but please, give me plenty more. It's what makes it all. Forget about I'm not trying to make heaps of money off this or anything like that. It's the whole idea is to have a bit of banter with people and feedback and things like that, because it's what I enjoy to do. So yeah, please keep sharing, subscribing, all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you guys next week at some point. Stay safe and brush your teeth. Bye.